Ass titties. Hello everybody, welcome back to Talkin' Tricks, and today we're actually joined by two special guests today. So first, we have the one and only Tal Flow. A lot of people know him on the tricking page as
infamous on the tricking page
for the hot takes.
Yep. To say the least.
Yes, exactly. But actually, it is a pleasure to have you on because we talked to you.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and I genuinely think there's some good ideas there. And then joined by his friend Sam. Hello, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
And so basically, this episode's going to be a little different. What we're pretty much going to do is like a debate style kind of thing. So we're just going to, me and Tal have two very different models for trick theory. And we're basically going to we're going to try to poke holes in each other's theories in efforts to make them better. And as we do this, we're not really going to be pointing out oh, you should be calling it this, you should be calling it this, but rather we're going to try to be poking holes in the actual logical consistency of each other's trick theory format, if that makes any sense. So it's okay if we disagree. Like, for example, Tal thinks that fake landings exist. I do not, and I think that's one place, maybe you'll disagree with me, Tal, but I think that's one place where it's cool if you call it fake landing stances, or if you don't call it fake landing stances, we could still agree that the concept for it exists and we can describe it in different ways. But I guess that's for later on. But
we can talk about that now if you want.
Actually, yeah, that's a good segue. Do you really think that you have to say fake landing stances in order for fake landing stances to exist?
Well, I don't think it's necessary, but you've mentioned it as kind of relative to DOM, and I kind of have to disagree with that. Sometimes it can be, usually when you front swing out of, let's say, fake semi, which is just hyper with your leg in front, it has to be a DOM change. Right. But that's just relativity. I'm not saying I'm saying it not all the time it changes your DOM.
What's an example of doing a fake landing stance and it doesn't change your DOM?
Okay, let's say aerial fake complete, missleg B twist.
Okay, so wait, so what exactly is fake complete then? So that would be landing in mega and then performing a backswing? And
no,
so
it would be mega with your leg in back instead of leg in front.
I think that's the thing is Tal, the way he defines fake landing stances is by that leg placement. And I've heard that, but I've also heard just different arguments for how to define fake landing stances. For now, I guess we'll take your definition of that. But so let me think. So you said fake complete into missleg B twist, which is what me and Jason would call rapid B twist. And I think that actually does play a part in why ours is still valid, because if I were to say, we would still actually just call that, mega, obviously, because we don't really use fake landing stances. But if I said mega and I said you rapided into a B twist, and I've told you my definition of rapid and missleg before, but if you need to hear it again, rapid is when you don't swing but you're going with your DOM, then it's already understood that that leg is placed behind you because there's no swing occurring. And so that, I think that's where I really fall with the fake landing stances, is there's some things that could be understood as givens without explicitly naming it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I guess it does.
For me, the biggest thing was when you say fake complete, at least the way I've understood the fake landing stances is to almost imply a particular transition between the tricks. So for example, when you say fake complete, I assume you're referring to a swing gainer or swing cork out of it. And maybe that's just my incorrect assumption.
If you're doing a backswing out of it, yeah.
That's one way I've seen it defined, I would say.
Yeah, but like you're saying, you could still do fake complete, and which essentially would just be that eagled position in mega, and still go forward. That wouldn't be a DOM shift. That would just be what Frank described it as rapid because just essentially that's how we understand the difference between rapid and missleg in our framework at least.
If you're trying to front swing from fake complete, you're saying that's a rapid in your definition.
It's not a front swing.
If you're trying to front swing, because like you're in fake complete and you're.
If you're doing a front swing type of trick, yes, yeah.
You wouldn't actually be doing a swing through.
Yeah.
But
what would you call?
Yes, if you meant.
I mean, then if you called fake complete missleg, or fake complete to B twist a rapid, then what would you call fake complete swinging your leg forward but not quite making the swing?
That's also wait, is that also rapid to us? Which way? Okay, what's the trick that's happening afterwards? I should say.
Rapid.
Would it be a full?
Or full?
Okay.
Forward.
Okay.
Yeah. You're
actually at that point,
not completing a swing, but
we call that rapid cork, I think.
Wait, that's two definitions.
Oh, sorry,
I wouldn't call that. Yeah. Well.
Sorry. I need a big refresh on this. So you're saying land fake complete, and then you're bringing, let's say you're a left twister. You're bringing your right leg forward. You're not quite passing that leg, but then you go into like a full type of motion, right? Against your dom?
Yeah, against your DOM.
Okay, so that's a swing against your dom, or non-swing.
Or you're not, yeah.
A non-swing against your dom, so that's a missleg. So I'd call that missleg cork. And the reason why I would call it cork...
I would also call it that based on the definition too.
Yeah.
When I initially heard it, I thought that this was pretty challenging because I know that there's like some positions with regards to landing stances like this, like the fake complete in particular, the one that you described, Tal, that like I know Frank and I struggled to like come up with, but I would agree with that assessment, Frank, in that it would be missleg because it still meets the criteria and definitions that we've applied to missleg.
So what's your definition of missleg? You've described rapid, but what do you describe as missleg?
It's a non-swing against dom.
And what was your definition of rapid?
Non-swing with dom. That's like the differentiating factor.
Yours is DOM relative.
A lot of our framework has to do with DOM relevant stuff. Like it's one of the most important things. Actually,
your framework does sound consistent in that way, but the only thing is it disregards fake stances. It's consistent if you disregard fake stances.
So our thing about disregarding fake stances, like I said, is that you could still have everything internally consistent without adding this extra layer of complexity to it, and what I've always strived for in creating a trick theory framework is I don't want extra terms that I need to make up and memorize when I can already describe. Like, for example, I know that if you told me straight up to my face, you're like, I just did a mega full rapid A twist, then I know by definition that the stance you're in is quote unquote fake complete. Like it's an understood thing because you know that your leg is behind.
Wait, if you said full mega rapid A twist, that would be full mega, not full fake complete. If it were fake complete,
that's what we're saying. You don't need to say fake complete because if we say mega and you say rapid afterwards, then it's understood that it's the quote unquote fake complete, which is just your leg behind, which is just mega to us. Does that make sense?
Wait, kind of, not really, honestly.
See what I think, Tal, the difference that you're looking for is like a way to distinguish where the leg is placed in relevance to the plant leg, like the swing leg. But what Frank is trying to say is that it is implied and isn't necessarily like it's implicit and not explicitly defined as to say like there is a difference between mega and fake complete and based on where that leg is essentially.
If I were to come up with an analogy for this, it's like you could say full swipe gyro or you could say full snapu. Full snapu is less words, but it conveys the same idea basically, and it's implied that when you say snapu, you're swiping and you're gyroing. All those two are combined into one. I don't have to explicitly say gyro. In the same way, whenever me and Jason have our trick theory framework, we don't have to explicitly say fake landing stances because it's implied whenever you say, I did mega full and then I rapided into A twist. It's understood that you landed mega with your leg behind you, which is what some people would call fake complete. Does that make sense?
Wait. What you said makes sense, but the last part about like you landing, like actually landing in fake complete and rapiding in A twist, with my definition, that would be missleg A twist. Because
okay, so why is that missleg?
So I can tell you the idea I have for my framework if you want.
Yeah.
So the difference between rapid and missleg. If you're rapid, let's say this applies to vice versa as well. I'll give you the vice versa version after this. But let's say you're in a backswing stance and you're trying to backswing, but you don't really complete the swing. That's a rapid. It's like you can swing from it, or you could just like do like a little chode swing and not complete it. Do a little rapid like that. Now the vice versa. If you're in a front swing stance like semi or mega or fake semi, fake mega, I'll do it from let's do it from mega. You could either front swing a B twist or you could either rapid a B twist. You're not completing. So rapid is like an uncompleted swing. Now missleg, in my definition, none of it is like DOM doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Missleg, in my definition, if you're in a backswing stance and you're trying to front swing from it, but your leg's already in back, I can't reach very much farther. That's a missleg.
Right.
Vice versa, if you're in a front swing stance, let's say mega, and you're trying to swing from it, you're trying to do a backswing from it, but your leg's already in front, then that's a missleg.
Okay, and like you said, DOM doesn't really matter. So your differentiation between rapid and missleg has more to do with if you're at the beginning swing position or at the ending swing position in a given trick. So like
Tal.
What's
I'm sorry, Frank. Really quick, I think I have something that might help bridge some understanding here. So, Tal, we actually have some overlap in regards to what we consider to be rapid and what we don't consider to be rapid, because but the difference between what we're talking about and what you're talking about is this international trick line where things become flipped depending on whether you are in frontside or backside. And I'll get into that in a second. But for example, when we presented within the context of a frontside position, landing in mega or fake complete, when we presented to you rapid, you called it missleg. All right, but
if you're in mega or fake complete, if you're in fake complete,
those are synonymous for me. So what I meant is when you are facing frontside. Okay, so frontside landing stance on your left leg, your leg position doesn't necessarily matter. But when what I'm going to get at though is what you called to rapid, where you the not a complete swing, right? We actually would call that the same thing on the other side. So if let's say for example we were to do full rapid cork, that would look like exactly, and that would meet your criteria of what a rapid is.
Wait, would it? Oh yeah, it would. It would. You're right.
You could either do
the only thing that you
swing cork. Yeah.
Huh? I'm sorry. Yeah. So exactly. So yeah, you understand what I'm saying. So it's that the only difference that you and I that we have right now is that Frank and I recognize a flip in when something becomes missleg and when something becomes rapid, and it's based on DOM. And I understand that your framework may not be DOM centric, but in the context of our framework, since everything is kind of DOM centric, it has an impact on like just about literally everything. And and I'm not saying that you may not necessarily agree completely with what I'm saying, so that's fair. But I just wanted to kind of explain, kind of just give you an idea of where we are coming from, and say that like for some of it, we're actually pretty close. It's just we flip it when you're in front side versus backside.
Yeah.
I mean, so far that does sound logically consistent. If I'm like with you explaining it to me, do you notice anything, Samuel?
Well, I don't notice anything inconsistent. I will say, like, while we're talking about fake stances versus just using mega or anything, all we're talking about is missleg and rapid, and not like any of the other transitions that might happen from the stance.
Okay, that's a fair assessment. So, do you have any other examples of transitions that we could use?
No, this actually brings up a really good point because, Jason, what would we call? Oh shit! Sorry, my dogs are barking. I was gonna say, what would we call a mega? So what they would call fake complete, and then you swung into a cork. I mean, I would just call that mega full swing cork, and that's it.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, and there's no overlap there with any other terms as far as I know, unless you guys want to point that out. But also, really quick, something I've noticed is like I don't think there is any logical inconsistencies with your framework so far, Tal. Like, I think you're covering bases in just a very different way, and that's really it. I think so. Yeah.
Well, and I want to say that we actually essentially agree on the same point again, but just like when it comes to front side versus back side, we switch it, and the definitions kind of change, I guess, and it would seem that way.
Exactly.
But also, really quick, okay, here's an example of another swing that happens where it shouldn't, and that's like a double seven landed in what Frank and I would call short complete, or I'm sorry, short hyper. I apologize. And done to like a front swing rise. So you could, like, a pretty popular example is Tiki Wu doing it, and he has a complete dom shift, but we still don't say anything about, like, it's still double seven front swing rise, right? It's just hypered and not.
We'd call that
ultra.
fake semi.
Yeah, that.
I know you. I know you would.
Yeah.
I know you would, but that's why I said it's hyper. Because
we would just specify hyper.
Those things are, in our view, synonymous. So, but yes, exactly though. Fake semi versus the difference between landing and real semi. I mean,
yeah,
we just don't really like name it different.
I was gonna say I think my only critique with Tal's framework so far is just that like redundancy factor. Like I really do truly believe that fake is like redundant when I could very easily describe it very quickly by just saying like I just rapided from a mega. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that's what makes it easy for me to understand non-fake stances. And then fake, like, to me, fake adds this other layer of like there's these terms I'm really familiar with, which are complete and mega and all this stuff, but now I have to add fake in front, and I need to think about it with 180 degrees of like offset, and then I need to think about where my foot position is, and that's just like yeah, I can fathom it because I've been tricking for like 10 plus years, but like I could see how a lot of people would get confused like coming in, and I know people have gotten confused by it. You know?
Well, and that's one thing that I had an issue with was when I was like, I didn't really start understanding fake stances until like this year or like last year, and like I've been tricking for 10 years, and I like, you know, I'm not to say that like I'm like, you know, should be some sort of like example or anything, but like that just kind of goes to show like these ideas aren't really simple, and by like convoluting the process a bit, by like having someone to perform a lot of mental gymnastics to reach the same, you know, the same result is kind of just like where, you know, we're kind of confused. Additionally, fake stances, because of like the amount of mental effort it takes to unravel, just like it's just not very accessible.
Well, I think that all of tricking theory, like, it isn't complicated. The reason why it's complicated is because of miscommunication. Because like someone will say, "Oh, this is a cork," and then you know it's like a game of telephone where at the end you started with a cork, but now you're with like a swing gainer twist, right. And you know it's like we don't need that, right?
I think a lot of people get caught up in the semantics. I think that's like kind of the point of why I wanted to make this episode too, is so that we don't get caught in the semantics, because that's just the most frequent like thing that happens. It's like, but you should call it this, you should call it this, and stuff like that, instead of arguing if a framework is logically consistent or not.
Like you have to define what semantics are, because to me and Tal, we think like, fake stances, they aren't semantics, they're just part of tricking.
I would argue they are semantics, because it's just a different way to call the same thing. Like we're describing it in a different way, you're using different words to describe the same thing. That's semantics. So yeah. And like there is, don't get me wrong, there is room to argue semantics, because of like so instead of talking about logical consistency, you could also talk about like how accessible the framework is, how useful it is, And that is where you can argue semantics, and you can say, yeah, if you call it this, that's going to be a bad thing because we've used the same term for other things, and it's going to confuse people, or, like other things like that, if that makes any sense. Does it?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
I mean, what's your guys' definition of semantics?
Essentially, like, the point that we're trying to make is whenever we say something like mega, or whenever we say like any of these stances, and you're like, oh, that's that, like, it's actually a fake version of the 180 degree difference or whatever. But essentially, like, you still understand what I'm talking about. Like, like earlier in the conversation, Tal corrected me when I said mega, and I was like, oh, they're just synonymous to me. It's like, we're talking about the same thing, the same area. We don't have to necessarily have different names for those things. And because of that, because we have so many different names for these things, it causes a lot of confusion. And, that's kind of like my piece on that.
Yeah, but I think you guys have your own theory, and we have our own theory. And because we both have these different ideas, like, someone else will be like, neither of these are cohesive. I'm going to make my own theory. And then someone else is going to be like, his isn't cohesive. I'm going to make my own theory. And that's going to keep on happening. And I don't think that's going to stop for a while.
Do you think that's good or a bad thing?
Personally, I think it's a little bit of a bad thing, but a little bit of a good thing, because, someone could have a good idea. They could bring it to the table. Yeah. But then we don't have any system to where, like, we might get, like, regional differences as well. Yeah. Everyone in Japan has a different theory than everyone in America has a different theory from everyone in France or something.
Yeah. Jason and I have actually been working on, like, a thought process where instead of having just one cohesive, like, grand unified trick theory, you have, like, different piecemeal models that are good for different things. And what I mean by that is, like, we have our main trick theory model, me and Jason, but something that doesn't fit really nicely into our tricking model is, for example, describing inversion. And that's a limitation that we've acknowledged on our show. And we've tried to think about different alternative models that include inversion as a more essential part of it, that could describe different tricks. And that could open up the possibility for different tricks. That's not to say that our old model sucks in any way. It's just that's a limitation of it. Because I think our old model is really... I mean, our I guess, main model is really good. Because it's had some predictive value, as has been shown. But, yeah, it's hard to just have one overarching, I guess, model. And you can even see this reflected in, like, modern science. Like, we have different models for describing space versus describing, like, really small things like quantum physics and stuff like that. Like, they are just fundamentally incompatible with each other. And I mean, it'd be great to have a unified theory, but for now they're
I would actually relate it to the imperial system versus the metric system, sort of.
Yeah. In what way?
Yeah, with how we both are measuring the same thing but in different ways.
Oh, yeah, easily. But it still describes the same thing, so it doesn't even matter. But, yeah, absolutely. But, yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I think the takeaway from this part of the discussion is, like, with fake landing stances, I don't think there's anything necessarily, like, logically wrong with everything you've said, Tal. Like, I think it is logically consistent. But, yeah, it's just, I guess, semantics where we disagree,
Yeah, and I would say, too, that, like, with my current understanding of fake stances, and especially talking to you, Tal, because I'll be honest, you've helped, like, improve my understanding of them. Mm-hmm. Like, it does make sense when you understand it completely, but even still, I feel like, what exactly would fake semi look like and all this other... I mean, we already know what the answer to all that is, but, I'm just saying, like, to come up with it on the fly, like, it takes a while, and it takes a while to, like, understand exactly the process and how to, like, invert the the already established landing stance for it to become fake.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it just like it just takes a while to like understand, but I don't think there's anything like inherently wrong with that. I just takes a bit.
Yeah. Do do you have any like final thoughts about like our model that doesn't use fake landing stances? Like, is there any strong feelings you guys have or anything?
I don't know, because like I've been thinking about it, there's really no way that I can prove your framework wrong. But I feel like, of course I'm biased, but I feel like using fake stances is not that complicated. I figured it out in pretty little time, and I've only been tricking for like a year and a half. And it's not super complicated. I've explained it to my friends, and they kind of get the gist of it. Just fake semis is hyper with the leg in front. Fake hyper is just semi with a leg in back. Fake complete is just mega with a leg in back. And fake, what's the last one? Fake mega is complete with a leg in front.
Yeah.
And then the framework that I was talking about is just based off of front swing stances and back swing stances, whether it be complete or hyper or fake hyper, and then the front swing stances. It's like we do have different framework. Like Noah said, it's like metric versus imperial.
Sure.
And there is no way I can prove you guys wrong.
Something it's because we're talking about the same concept just in a different way.
Yeah.
But something that actually I have not heard a lot from you about, Tal, is your sideways directional things, such as GM swings, wrap swings, and as well as Lotus and technically Muggle Slayer swings. We don't even have to really talk about Lotus and Muggle Slayer too much because we could just flip wrap and GM. So, but talk to me about wrap and GM.
GM starts from hyper, or
okay. So
if your DOM is changed.
Yeah. Okay. So already here, I don't know what you were gonna say, Jason. But I was gonna say we make a differentiation between short hyper and absolute hyper because one of them is gonna be your croc swing and the other one's gonna be your GM swing. Does that make sense? So
I don't think that there should be a difference personally.
Yeah, you see croc.
I think that croc is GM. It shouldn't be like super complicated. Just like you wouldn't differentiate doing like a scoot full, but you do a cart full. Oh, it's a little bit cheated. I'm gonna call it something different. I think that there's just like you're in hyper. Croc is GM swing. I don't think GM scoot is a thing.
So I have a question. Do you differentiate Lotus and Gainer?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if you differentiate,
I was better at explaining that.
Well,
but you don't.
Yeah.
For the other side.
Yeah.
Well, it's not about the that's about a different thing. That's about the set, the shoulder set, not the landing thing.
So yeah, shoulder set isn't even like a thing in ours.
What is so? Wait, how does shoulder? So does shoulder set then apply to when you do other directional swings as well, or does it only apply to when you do like literally Lotus?
Oh, are we going to talk about axis theory or?
I mean, yeah, we can.
It doesn't.
We can.
If it's relevant to that.
Yeah.
It is, because Lotus is an axis theory trick, and it's like one of the only times in tricking where you would differentiate something based on shoulder set, like Gainer versus Lotus.
Okay.
And often a miscommunication is that Lotus starts from Mega and then swings like that. What me and Noik think is that Lotus starts same way as Gainer, is that you set over your, I forgot if it was right or left. I don't do Lotuses. I don't.
You drop your left shoulder.
Drop your left shoulder, yeah.
You drop your left shoulder. I would think it's the other way around. So we were just talking about Lotus, and you brought up that Lotus is one of the few times where the shoulder thing is relevant, and that to me, like as a trick theorist, raises a red flag. Whenever there is like an outlier, where it's just like, oh, yeah, we have this thing in our model, but it only pertains to this trick. To me, I feel like the more universal something is, the more, I guess, logically consistent your trick theory framework will be, if that makes any sense.
I agree with you. I've been actually thinking about that on my own.
Let me kind of like explain further in case like Sam may not like kind of understand exactly what we're saying. We don't like to see things that happen in a trick to only one specific trick. And that's I mean, like if we could do it to one side, we should be able to do it to the other side. And like a clear example would be like, okay, so I guess I'll take a step back and talk about the universal nature of like variations and such is that, you know, or making additions to a trick should be applied to every trick. Is like you could snafu or add snafu at the end of literally any trick.
Any
right?
base
Rise,
trick. Yeah.
Right. Any base trick, you can add a snafu to it, and you know it's full snafu, it's cork snafu, it's whatever.
Well, not any
know?
base trick. You can't butterfly snafu.
I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
Wait, no,
think
you
it would
can,
look
you
good.
can. Wait, no, you
It would,
can't.
it would be
Wait.
kind of like, it would actually be very much like Dragonfly Twist, I think,
Yeah.
or Dragonfly B Twist.
Yeah.
But
I understand what you're
I don't
saying.
know.
But
Essentially, though, like, you know, we should be able to apply concepts to not just one particular trick, but to every trick.
yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
you can apply axis theory to almost every flip. It's just that we don't need to.
Okay, what do you mean by that? What? Okay, so what's your definition of axis theory? Actually, really quick, I'm kind of curious what you mean when you say axis theory.
So axis theory is taking from the theory that you know Josh Malone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he has this concept of axis theory that he took from skiing and snowboarding. And so whenever I say axis theory or Tal says axis theory, we're talking about the skiing and snowboarding sort of flip side that freerunners took.
Right. Yeah, and I have heard some of that terminology thrown around, and I think I do agree with you that it's only going to be relevant in certain circumstances. I think that's
otherwise it's redundant.
Yeah, I think that's what me and Jason have been struggling with our theory of inversion and axis and all of that stuff. And like our base model, for example, like it really doesn't make a lot of differentiations with inversion. It's either you're inverted or you're not inverted. Like we don't even differentiate horizontal, which is kind of a hot take, but that was our base model, and we've made some revisions since then. But it's just complicated. But I'm curious what you guys think axis theory has to do with Lotus. I mean, if you think
Well, you're better at explaining.
So in axis theory, there's a bunch of different axes or whatever. I forgot how you say it. But yeah, cacti. So they have flat, rod, cork, bio, misty, and rodeo.
yeah.
And a lot of them sort of muddled together because there are so many of them, you know.
Right.
But Lotus would be a flat 3 because what they're doing is they're setting with their left shoulder dropping. And I guess you could also take this to slice as well, sort of, but you're dropping your shoulder back, and when you're setting up, your hips reach level with your shoulders, or they're a little bit below. If they're below, then it's rod, but if they're level, then it's flat. And since Lotus is a 360 as like a quote-unquote flip, you call it flat 3.
Right, because it's the 360. I see what you mean. I think there's going to be a lot of discrepancies between our trick theory models, especially at this point, because me and Jason, you could poke holes in this if you'd like, our most important things, like I said, Dom, and we also care about, you know, if you're inverted or not. We care about the takeoff. And those are like the 3 most important things. We have variation thrown in there as well. But to us, the way we differentiate Lotus is that it's specifically a trick where your Dom is to the right of you when you take off. And what that means is you're landing quote-unquote short complete. So that's like complete, but you're 90 degrees short of it. It's still technically complete, actually. And then you do a GM type of swing. So your leg is swinging in front of you, kind of like how you would a GM. And so that's why that's the mirror of the GM swing on the other side. And that's kind of how we came up with Muggle Slayers, because Muggle Slayer has to be wrapped on the other side. So short complete wrapped rather than absolute hyper wrapped, if that makes any sense. And then that's also how we differentiate A-twist versus Rise versus Corkin versus Croc. So A-twist, for example, is the Croc of Rise, because it has everything the same with Rise, you're just taking off the other foot, right? And same thing with cork and croc. Obviously, croc is the croc of cork. So
Croc is the croc of cork.
it is.
True.
So,
Not much to see there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, all of that is like very Dom relative, of course. But I don't know. Do you guys see any inconsistencies maybe in that model?
Well, and
Okay.
I had something additional to say because regarding like Lotus and stuff, and it's that like we don't just see like what I refer to as like the linear landing stances as options. That's to say where you would either do front swing or backswing or missleg or mega. While I think that is like a pretty easy way to streamline it, I think that there's also a lot of gray area that we see often in tricking, such as like mega aerial, which lands at what would be like it would be in between both complete and mega, right? Like your leg would be facing this 90-degree angle that hasn't yet reached the whole other way around yet. And Frank and I refer to that as we kind of talked about it before, as short mega, or a short version of the completed version, which is 90 off. And this like these 4 landing stances actually make up like 4 quadrants of like a circle, or 4 quadrants of like a square. You could think of like a Punnett square. I think is that what it's called, Frank?
Punnett square. Punnett square is genetics, but sure.
Oh yeah. Okay, it's not that then. So, anyway,
just like a flat plane, just like an X and a Y
essentially,
axis.
just like a flat plane.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I don't think there's a reason to like differentiate like 90-degree stuff. I think it's just like complete hyper mega semi and then the fake stances. I think if it's like in the middle here, it depends on how you intend it, how you go about it. Let's say you want to either front swing a B twist or you want to swing a cork. Your DOM's this way, but you're facing in the middle of complete and mega. Oh no, what is this? If you kind of like, the foot placement isn't the only thing that dictates it. If like, let's say you take off and you're kind of treating it like that, if you're watching this monkey on the screen, or if you're treating it like, if you're in the same position and then you treat it like that a little bit differently, if you set it more like you would a cork.
So the Dom changes?
No, there's no DOM change. I'm not talking about DOM change.
I'd argue there was. Let me see that again.
No, I'm talking about a missleg B twist versus a swing cork from in the middle of mega and complete.
Okay, but here's the thing though. Okay, 1 second, Tal, because I think that in addition to what 2 things you're trying to differentiate from, at that stance, you can also literally backswing into a cork that is 90 degrees off of your Dom.
What do you say?
So from there, you're not limited to just a twist or cork, in the sense of either going forward or backward, but now you can cork at this 90-degree angle to the, you're right. And so like you could do like, there's more options in this way.
Right. Well, to me, it's still the differentiating factor is Dom, whether you call it that or not. Like that, like if you're doing a cork versus a B twist, that is how I'm going to differentiate it. Well, besides the takeoff, obviously that plays a part. But in one of them, you're traveling in one direction. Cork, you're traveling a different direction. And I don't know. I guess your definition of intentionality seems a little vague. Like I don't want to like base a tricking model off of like, oh, they intended to do this, therefore that's what it is. Because that's
only if it's in the gray area. Like how I think of it, complete. Let's say you're complete. It could go from here all the way to maybe here. A good example of this is a very slightly over cheated cheat 9. If you start from, if your DOM's this way and you're doing a cheat 9, but you take off instead of perfect ideal cheat 9, you're in hyper or 90 degrees facing hyper. If you take off like just a little bit here, but you still treat it like you would a cheat 9, it's still a cheat 9 in my book. It's not like a skip tornado.
I could agree with that.
It's only if it's in like the gray area, because that would just be like super strict and super like weird.
Sometimes I think in that case, if the kick takes off from front side or from like either mega or semi, then
very
yes,
slightly
that
front
would
side.
be. Then it may end up being tornado. In my opinion.
It could, depending on how you intend it. If you're doing it like, let's say I'm going to try to replicate it as best as I can. Let's say some beginner trickers doing like a cheat 9, they're trying their first cheat 9. They take off like right here, and they kind of, as they take off, they look over their shoulder a little bit, like you would a skip tornado. and then they do a skip tornado. Or if someone's going like this, they take off in the same place, but they take off still like kind of spotting the front with their hips in front, but their legs are just a little bit to the left, a little bit closer to semi than complete.
Yeah.
I think it's still, semi than hyper. I think it's still hyper. Hyper, and they have like a little bit of overlap in the middle. Right. So hyper and semi kind of have like a little bit of overlap based on intention.
Right.
You can do a cart full and then take off like right here instead of perfect cart full or perfect cart full. Just take off like right here and then still treat it like a full. That's a cart full. That's a full.
I might disagree with. Because we have
my main thing is, especially when it comes to like beginning tricking, like in the context of what you said, like regarding like the cheat 9, and it would most likely be a case-by-case basis is how you'd have to approach that kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's just like a beginner's tricker's intentions are always to do the trick appropriately, but
yes,
a beginner tricker does not always have the skill to perform that trick as it is supposed to be performed and will perform skip tornadoes. So I don't think that because a beginner tricker can do a skip tornado in that way, or because we can, doesn't mean we should call it cheat 9, even if it looks close enough like to.
But again,
a better example, I'm sorry, really quick, would be when people do what some people call like front swing 9, or to land in semi and then do just a single rotation back to semi, but kicking around like, so technically mega. And people might call that front swing 9. However, that does not have nearly enough rotation to be called a 9. And I would just call it swing through tornado.
Front swing tornado, yeah. I agree.
Oh, of course.
I think a very interesting thing, like, about your framework, for example, is, like, obviously, if a beginning tricker is doing a cart full and they land in that, like, mega semi position, whatever, with their 2 legs, and then they do a full, I'm not going to be a dick. I'm not going to be like, technically that wasn't a cart full. Like, you know what I mean? It's like...
Actually...
Nice front half, loser.
Yeah, no, like, fucking nerd.
It's actually a slash
okay, but actually, while yes, I agree, it's like you shouldn't, like, rag on newbies for that. Like, they should understand what they're doing is not what they're doing. Like, it's fundamentally different.
Just to clear it up, I think... Just to clear it up, this isn't based on, like, being nice to new people. This is based on, like, actual... This applies to everyone. This can apply to... Let's say Shosei does a cart full like that. Shosei does... He doesn't, but let's say he does. He does a cart full, and it takes off just a little bit. You're in that 90 degree between complete and mega. You're, like, a little bit right here. If you still treat it like you would a cart full, I think that it still is a cart full. No matter what your skill level is. I don't care about... not that I'm going to call out new people for being like, actually, that wasn't inverted enough to be a cart full. I consider that a full raiz, to be honest.
I don't know your take, Jason, on this, but I actually disagree. I think we should call things as they are, and especially if it's someone like Shosei doing it. And, like, let's say he does, he lands quint full, but he's taken off of that position. I'm not inclined to call that quint full.
Cart Adolf?
Yeah, literally. No, like, quite literally, I would be like, bitch, that's
literally cart Adolf.
Yeah, exactly.
No, then you would have to change the cart position. You could call it cart semi. It would have to be cart semi or cart half Adolf.
Mega cart Adolf, yeah.
And you could specify that for sure, but
the thing is, he wouldn't treat the cart like a cart semi or cart mega. That's kind of one of the reasons why I said what I said.
I guess, like, my thing is, like, even if you're not treating it the same, it's still the same trick. Like, there are multiple ways to perform the same trick, and that, like, if I'm going to do like cheat 720 twist, my set for the rise is going to be high, but, like, if I'm going to swing rise, my set is going to be much lower. Or I guess just in general, like, if I was going to swing rise versus do a big floaty rise, like, there's different techniques to that, and doesn't necessarily mean that they should be called different things.
I don't know. It seems like we're trying to look for math in tricking. We're, like, trying to find the very, like, 0.6% of how much he's rotating or something like that. But I think since tricking is so physical, that's not something that we can really, or not can't, but I don't think it's something that we should really differentiate as extremely.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, because this was a big discussion that me and Jason had very early on, was like, I mean, we really could go to like the very small minutia of it and really like if we want to create 360 landing stances, we could totally do that. But obviously,
actually, it'd be 720 because 2 feet. But
well, it could be more depending on how much you would. 360 is arbitrary.
Technically, it's infinite. It's
you got to start counting the toes too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, like, yeah, you can split it to that degree, but obviously, everyone would agree that is not a useful model. And so, me and Jason have actually really been trying to find a sweet spot in between, like, splitting the circle in 360 and every landing stance is the same as every other landing stance. So we're trying to find like a nice middle between it. And I mean, I'm under the opinion that I think our trick model, especially with like how we split landing stances, is a very human and visual way to see it. Like we never are like, we have to pause play this to really understand it. Or that's what we strive for, at least. We're just like, okay, where is the foot placement? And that's what's going to tell us the trick, and you just have to look at it, and you're good, and that's it. And so, like, I don't think there's anything too specific or sciencey about ours, or at least not to the degree that you might be explaining it. But.
Now, I do want to highlight the difference that Sam is trying to talk about, and this is actually a common one and something we've talked about on our podcast before as well, and that's microdividers and simplifiers, I think is what we called it. But essentially, like, how technical do you want to get? How in-depth do you want to get? Because while I agree that our framework, it does account for a lot more like minute things, minute differences than yours does, especially with regards to like the landing stances at 90-degree points. Like that is just an example of how Frank and I are like more like, you know, honing closer in on something, and you guys are more like, you know, you're more general with it. It can be a little bit more fluid. It doesn't have to be as rigorous. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's two different ways to look at the trick. So I didn't want you to think that you know, like we're trying to like count every ounce of rotation, because in actuality I feel like Frank and I are pretty in the middle, because like I said, if we wanted to get like extremely technical and really into the numbers, there's an infinite amount of ways to land and an infinite amount of ways to do things, as you've described, Sam, because humans are as we are. We're not, you know, calculators, we're not computers. You know, we do things as we do them, and they're never the same each time.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think
so like that's kind of like, I think that's really where a lot of our differences lie in regards to like framework, is what how far we'll go and look into something versus like, you know, generalizing.
I don't think you guys are like trying to be detectives at a crime scene or anything, but
I actually am though.
We got the monocles.
You should watch our. If you haven't seen our dissects, I mean, I'm brutal.
Jason's ruthless. He's way more ruthless than I am. But go on, sorry.
But like your short stances, like we don't think there should be a differentiation between them, the same way you think there shouldn't be a difference between fake stances.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is a valid critique, because it is very hard sometimes to tell the difference between those 90-degree markers. But I do think that they are important in describing tricks that trickers have typically differentiated in the past. And that's why I bring up short and absolute as like landing stances. And me and Jason have talked about this before, actually, in our podcast. We're like, most of the time, I'm not going to say short or absolute. When I'm talking day-to-day with the homies and describing tricks, I'm not saying short or absolute. When I do say short and absolute is when I really want to differentiate or clear up a point with someone. And so, like, there's different times where you want to bring up these different aspects, if that makes any sense, depending on how deep you want to go with someone describing tricks. So, you know. But, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we got a little derailed from our Lotus discussion, but
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Well, I think it is technically relative, because the way that you and I view Lotus, Frank, is that the ideal position is those 90-degree pointers.
Yeah.
And you know, that's just kind of like.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost always been defined by that Dom relative kind of takeoff thing. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, unless you guys have other thoughts on this subject, I was kind of curious about listening to Tal's aerial versus rise discussion thing.
Yes, Tal. I'm waiting for the update on that.
So, ever since we started talking, you raised a really good point. You were like, well, I see what you mean about the raiz, but you said aerial's like the A-twist is the opposite of it. Mm-hmm. So why shouldn't there be an A-twist theory? Like, why shouldn't there be an A-twist theory?
Hey, can I say something really quickly?
Yeah.
Like, you Tal came back and he was like, so they posed aerial theory, they posed A-twist theory, and I swear, 3 weeks before this whole thing happened, I was like, Tal, what about aerial theory? And he's like, no, we have raiz, we don't need aerial. And then he comes back and he's like, yeah, no, sure, let's do aerial.
Well, in my defense, you said that as a joke, so
yeah, I did say it as a joke, but
that's amazing. I love that Sam's just like the girl in this like business meeting or whatever, and he brings up an idea and everyone's like, okay, whatever, and then we just like repeat the same shit and they're like, oh, you got a good point.
Hey, that's a great idea, Tal.
Anyway. So for those who don't know about Tal's rise theory, it's maybe you could describe it better. I don't want to.
Yeah, we might as well leave it to Tal.
Yeah.
Actually, Noah, can you do it? Because I suck at explaining things.
Okay. So, raiz theory, or I call it associative raiz theory, because you're taking a trick and you're trying to associate to something else. Yes. Wow, big word.
Wow.
It is the idea that everything except for things that are like inside tricks and vertical kicks can be reduced to like a raiz variation. Mm-hmm. So like,
so raiz is the base trick for a lot of things.
Yeah,
is what you're saying?
Yeah, raiz is the base trick for a lot of things. So we'll use back handspring as an example. Mm-hmm. I think Tal talked about that on the page or whatever. Mm. But basically, you can turn a raiz into a back handspring through shifting it between like you can do pop snapu, right? Mm-hmm. Because you can do pop snapu, you can do pop raiz. Because you can do pop swipe, and since you can do pop raiz, you can do it from backside. Mm-hmm. But backside isn't additive. So when you're doing a raiz from backside, it comes out like a shant or like a backflip.
Right.
And since you're doing your raiz from backside, you would call it pop backside raiz, just to define that you're going off of 2 feet. Mm-hmm. And then to add the back handspring part into it, you would use Gumby, taking from like the concept of 360 back handspring being full Gumby. Mm-hmm. Well, if you do 360 back handspring / full Gumby without the 360, you just get a back handspring, and that would be a 2-hand touchdown. So back handspring would be pop backside raiz Gumby.
Right. Okay. Cool. And like it's interesting you guys bring that up, because me and Jason like literally our very first episode is about how every trick is every other trick if you just mold it enough. If you just fix these different parameters, like absolutely every trick can be turned into every other trick. But I think that also, so I guess my initial thoughts, and like obviously you can bring up your counterpoints and whatnot. My initial thoughts hearing this, I'm like, okay, well that just sounds like a non-statement. Like, of course I can make any trick into any other trick. like that's an obvious statement, and it's like, what is the use of it? Is my biggest question, I guess, maybe. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I personally think that it's just like an interesting fact, but Tal might think differently if he wants to explain that. Mm-hmm.
No, I agree with your assessment that you can basically mold any trick into any other trick. Mm-hmm. My main criticism was that I view like tricks like pop snapu and raiz both to be frontside tricks. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm still not seeing. I mean, I guess if you were to do raiz from backside, it would look kind of like a shant. But I have yet to see a convincing raiz from backside. But that's just my own personal.
Like, reason seeing it?
We can't hear you that well, Tal.
What?
Oh, why do you sound...
Oh, yeah, you sound like you're in a tunnel.
But the reason why we say you can do like pop backside raise is because you have frontside kicks and you have backside kicks, and like since you have pop D leg, and you have like backside parafuso or backside D leg.
Okay, so
you can do the same thing with raise tricks because you have pop D leg. What is vanish D leg? Vanish D leg is imbrigata.
That's the difference with us is we see those as variations rather than base tricks. And what I mean by that is you're saying you could do parafuso from frontside, you could do parafuso from backside. Well, parafuso is the variation, while the base trick,
the D-legging is the variation.
Sorry, yeah, the D-leg, whatever you want to call it, is the variation, while the base trick is like if you did frontside parafuso, frontside 360 or front, whatever you want to call the base trick, that's the base trick, and then backside has a different base trick, which is backside 360 twist with no kick. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? You could call it the base trick, whatever you want, but the main thing is that takeoff relative to your dom, if that makes any sense. So
yeah, you guys are very DOM heavy.
Yeah, we are, and yeah, that might be something we just fundamentally disagree on, and that's fine. But I do want to say that another point that Jason was really getting close to, that I kind of had an issue with this rise theory as well, is Jason talked about how, like, we don't consider pop swipe to be like a side swipe from pop. We consider it to be like front half as the base trick, and then swipe is the variation to it. And so
what if it doesn't flip?
If it doesn't flip, then it's pop frontside front 540 or something. I don't know. Like,
oh, right. Because you guys don't differentiate between horizontal, right?
No,
right,
yeah.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And that's one example of where we are pretty general is that. So
yeah,
I just want to point that out.
And so I really liked how your theory had like a very strong logical like train. Like you were like, oh, if you could do pop swipe from this, then that means you could do rise tricks from this, and you followed this logical train. But I think where it got fucked up was actually at the very beginning with the false assumption, and that false assumption is you could do stuff like pop rise and actually call it pop rise. Pop rise is not a thing for me and Jason. Rise. So sorry, let me just finish really quick. Rise to us is very specifically taking off your right leg, facing your dom. Like, this is rise to us, and saying something like pop rise is like a non-statement for us, if that makes any sense. So okay, so sorry for the interruption. I was basically talking about the logical, I guess, train of thought, and I don't know if you ended up replying to that, but
you said you thought that we messed up right at the beginning because you think that it's just front half because you don't differentiate between axis, and you were trying to justify that.
Yes, pretty much. So yeah, rise very specifically to us takes off right leg every single time if you're a left twister, and that's why we also don't think pop B twist is a thing. B twist very specifically takes off your left leg in a certain way. Same thing with cork, because, and the I guess just to further justify this, the reason why we make these differentiations is there's no way for us to functionally differentiate pop rise and pop B twist, because they can both take off essentially the same stance off two legs. And same thing with pop croc or pop cork. They essentially take off the same.
Or full.
Oh, well, yeah. This is just, I don't know I still don't know if Tal agrees with me on this, but this is just a me thing. I think, like, I think that you can't, like, it would be better just to relate rise to A twist instead of B twist.
Yeah. Oh, no. Welcome home.
Hell yeah.
Because... King. Okay, because here's the thing. A natural consequence of what we've all been talking about, this lack of differentiation between horizontal inversion and fully inverted inversion, is that there is no differentiation between B twist and A twist, and that these are the same tricks. And Frank and I, we subscribe to that. So you are among friends here, Sam.
Oh, well, I think when it comes to rise and A twist or raise and A twist, I switched how I said it, like, all the way through, but raise can happen anywhere from horizontal to fully inverted, right? But A twist is specifically inverted, and B twist is specifically horizontal.
Oh, so you actually disagree? Okay, never mind.
No.
It was
Get out of here.
You spoke too soon.
I'll take my leave.
I was so excited. I was like, "Oh, dude, Sam and I, we're on the same page here. Let's
No,
go."
never. That's really interesting. You make that differentiation too, because that to me is another like, oh, let's make these exceptions here, but not here.
I think that beat twist is more related to spider twist than.
That's funny you say that because I think spider is very much a rise. Like it's literally a rise takeoff. Don't invert. Land like rise.
Spider is a 180 if you're referring to like because it's a non-flipping trick.
Yeah.
Spider. Let's say I'll take this frog. You're doing
Isn't rise also 180 though?
No, it's 540.
What?
Because that's a flip.
Wait,
so,
what?
So backflip, that's a 360.
Oh, okay, no, I'm talking about
Rotation.
not including like actual flip rotation in amount.
What I'm saying is that you have to. Because if you convert, let's do it with like a more simple example: cork round versus swing 9. If you're doing a cork round, that's like a 720. If you actually no, let me start. If you're doing a swing 9, you land it complete. 1, 2, 720, right? Now if you
swing 9. Sorry, do the swing 9 one more time. I need to see it.
Okay, swing 9, 360.
That's not
720.
Let me.
If you land it complete, it's a 720.
Let me think about this really quick. Swing 9 here.
I think swing 9's 540 degrees.
If you're swinging from backside, you
Yes.
swing.
Yeah, but if you did a swing 9 swing, you'd have to land incomplete to like backswing it, and that would.
Yeah, you would have to over rotate your initial 9. You'd have to perform what I affectionately call a complete 9 to swing into another 9 from backside. Yes, I agree.
Swing 9 to me is 360.
I see it as 540.
I see it as 720.
This is wild. Can we get some video examples? Do you guys know a good place to?
I think the frog is quite enough. If you do the
Yes.
frog,
I don't know.
frog.
Whenever you do the frog, I just
Do
see
the
like
monkey
fingers and limbs.
Okay.
The monkey's
Let's do
not much
monkey.
better.
Oh,
The monkey's not much better.
It's a little spaghetti over there.
Yeah, let's. What do you guys know? Like a good place to look at a swing
Loop
9?
kicks.
Loop kicks, like the website.
yeah.
All right.
They would say this.
Is
Trictionary.
it just there? Trictionary. Okay.
I'll have you know.
I'll have you know.
Let's see. Where do I go? Tricks.
You go to the
vertical kicks.
Trictionary and then go to and just look up swing 9.
Okay, you're right. Wait, where do I search swing 9?
Swing
You
kicks.
could just go to swing kicks
Where's the swing kicks?
It's up there at the top.
I just pointed to my screen.
Nice.
Swing 9, the third one.
Okay, can we slow this down? Playback speed. Let's do 0.25.
Okay, takes off from there. Then
Backside.
That's 360.
Front side.
That is 720.
That's 720.
No, that is literally 540. Can you guys not count?
That's 720.
All right, guys, ready?
Okay, look, stop,
Ready?
look.
Take off right here.
Alright.
240.
Okay, he's literally facing the wall.
He's
Yeah.
facing the
Okay.
wall.
Yeah.
Alright, a full
360.
twist has occurred. 360.
Mm-hmm.
Still
He
facing the wall.
opens up at
Okay,
540, but
doesn't
he
matter.
ends in
What?
720.
I mean, okay, yeah, okay. But that's like...
I'm talking about from a scientific basis, not like a literal basis. From scientific basis, it would be a 720. Just like you would a cork round. A cork round is a 720.
I mean,
I think you.
I
think you
really
just
don't-
convinced me.
Round is not a non-additive thing. It doesn't change the amount of rotation. Even though in practice it does, in theory it doesn't. In theory, cork round lands incomplete. Swing 9 lands incomplete or mega.
This is crazy to me because I am convinced now, and I cannot see it, and I just.
I mean, like, okay, look. Here's the thing. He kicks at 540. Yes, is what I'm saying. So that's
Right.
like where I.
Yeah, he opens up
consider
at
the trick to be
540.
done. Now, but however, this is something that I talk about, not very frequently.
Mm-hmm.
But with Frank, I've mentioned it before, and this is like a common occurrence in round kicks. Is this? There's two ways to land, and we typically see people land in the mega stance so that they can continue with their dom facing forward. or they will over-rotate so that they are back in backside position in order to swing or perform pop tricks. So, I mean,
Usually
yes,
people would land here.
and 720. Yes,
it can either be 540 or 720.
Yeah.
Right. So I do agree that it can go to 720, and that is a common tactic used to get back to backside from like a round kick. It's just when I think swing 9, initially I'll think only like, that initial 540, and that additional 180 after that is optional. And not
maybe
necessary.
1080 would be a better example then.
Backside 10.
Yeah.
Swing 10?
Versus full hyperhook.
Yeah.
Or cork hyperhook? Or cork box? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, maybe like swing 10 compared to a box cutter would be a better example.
Yeah.
Because those, swing 10 is the
hyper.
It's just 720 hyper.
And complete and hyper are like the same. Theoretically, they're the same amount. It's just other
It's
legs.
just a swap in legs.
Well, I agree. I almost agree. I think that they come to a point where they share the same spot, but then hyper can also be a little bit past that at that 90-degree point that we're not going to talk about. But I would agree. Yeah,
So,
no,
just like you
I
would a
wouldn't say
cart full.
complete goes. I wouldn't say complete goes all the way to the 90 point, but I would
I think
say
it can
that
if you're doing like
complete-
a cart full.
I don't know why you would. That would be mega at that point if you landed on your left leg,
No,
or if you landed unified.
if you're like in the 90-degree facing forward,
So you're
then
down
that's
this way.
that's still complete. You can still do a cart full that way. If your DOM's that way, if you're right here, this is like a perfect cart full, I guess. But no one does cartwheels like a gymnastics cartwheel. Cart
Right.
full, yay! No, they do trigger cartwheel, which lands like pretty much right here most of the time. That's still
side to side cart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still
no, that's the 90. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So wait, what was the argument there? You're still calling that complete?
Yeah.
Like the landing for the cart?
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely the fuck not.
I mean, no.
No,
I mean,
not the
hyper,
cart.
Not
Oh, okay. I was
Not the
But,
cart.
but wait,
It
how
can't
is
be
it?
that.
Wait, but no. Hold on. Now that makes no sense because the cartwheel and the hyper full literally land the exact same way on the right leg. Because you could the same thing you do with. So that would mean that hyper full doesn't land in hyper and lands incomplete.
No. I misspoke.
There was
I
a
misspoke.
miscommunication.
There was
There was a
miscommunication.
Sorry.
miscommunication.
No, I wouldn't say anything outlandish like that. I'm saying that both hyper and complete can be at that 90 degrees.
Oh, I still don't agree with that, but
What do you mean
We can-
still at that
we
90
can-
degrees? I'm still confused by that.
Like, this is
if you
backside,
landed
this is
both
front
feet
side.
at the same time,
Well, no. I'm not talking about like complete. This is kind of like the first point, actually, the whole over-cheated cart full, the over-cheating discussion. If this is front side, this is backside. If you're right here, you could still do a cart full, and it's still a backside stance.
That's backside, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Well, that's kind of why we differentiate.
that's different than complete and hyper, though. I would say.
I know.
I'd say
there was a miscommunication.
fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough, though. Fair enough.
Valid. Well, okay. Well, regardless,
Back to
what was the point you were getting at with the swing 9 and the swing whatever?
I have to step away really quick.
Wait, what's up?
You can keep going. You can keep going. I just have to take a call real quick. So.
Okay. So what was the end results of that? I guess I'm still kind of struggling to grasp what you're getting.
Pretty
at.
much, if you do a box, right? Technically, if you don't count the flip, right, then a vert box would be swing 7,
Right.
but it's not, right?
Mm-hmm.
You relate 1080 to box because of the rotation.
Well, we
because
call
the
it
more
1080.
the more flat you get, right, and the lower and lower, the less inverted you get, the more rotation it looks like you have. So if you ever see anyone do like a double full, but then they don't actually flip until the very end and they just tuck their legs in and it kind of looks like a triple.
Yeah, that's
because the
actually
flip
really
is
cool.
turning into rotation.
It's really cool you bring that up because me and Jason have had a theorem about that. About the more flip you have, the less rotation you have to do. I don't know if that's actually scientifically accurate, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. And so I'm very curious about that question because I think there's some validity to that. maybe even if it's not in the scientific sense, maybe in a more like physical human prowess sense, I guess you could say.
You know Shaquille Worsley?
Sorry, what? What did you say?
No.
Me?
Same.
Oh, I'm saying that's like kind of a different discussion than what we were talking about before. But if that doesn't matter, then keep going.
We're just because you were trying to say that full round and backside 9 are the same thing, and since they didn't get the whole swing 9 thing, we moved on to 1080.
Oh, okay. Keep going. My bad.
But like, so yeah, the flip turns into vertical rotation, which is why. 12...
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just said that we were talking about this, Jason, recently. But go on.
It's one of my favorite things of all time.
Which is something weird that happens in B-twist, like because technically B-twist would be a 540, but because you kick up and you reach that horizontal point, that's 90 degrees up, and then you go back down, that's 90 degrees back down, and then you have the around, which is a second axis, which would be another 180, and then you have the twist of the B-twist, which would be 360, which would make it 720. Right. But it's like 540.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something I think we agree on, which is dope. That we actually have something to agree. I'm just kidding. But
back to what Tal was saying, because
back to disagreeing.
Back to let's
back to controversy.
Fuck shit up. Come on, let's go. What was so I think we were talking about raiz and aerial theory before this, though. So like, what was, I guess, the point of talking about this as it relates to raiz theory?
Well, Tal was saying that you have to add the flip when you're talking about it, because he said, oh, raiz is 540, and you guys were like, oh, really? So now Tal has to explain himself.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. We did say raiz is 540.
So, I think that this. Oh wait, no, that relates to a different discussion than that one. The tornadoes cheap 540 thing.
Too many tangents.
There's tangents. It's fine.
Okay, nerd talk. So say raiz from backside, or tornado from backside, pop tornado. That's a 360, right? But it's also a 540. 360 in practice, 540 in theory. Because if you're doing a cheat 9 right here, that's a cheat 9. Subtract 360 degrees from the name. 900 minus 360, 540. So you'd have to subtract it from the trick as well. A cheat 9 with one less rotation, but the same kick, same everything else. That's a tornado kick.
Okay.
That's why I think that tornado is cheat 540.
Oh, yeah, well, I could, I guess, agree with the nomenclature of calling that, yeah. I mean, whatever. I think that the I guess, kick terminology that we've picked is insanely arbitrary, and I actually don't give a fuck about the numbers. So, like, in my head, whenever I hear 900, I'm like, one twist kick. Like, that's what goes on in my head, regardless. If I hear 1080, it's 1.5 twist kick. Whether that's actually the degrees of rotation or not, like, I actually don't care. Does that make sense?
And this is actually another interesting part where you guys may, micro divide hone in more closely on where we are more general. So just something to note.
Yeah. So I don't know, I don't know if you agree with this, but like, for example, the reason why earlier we said that if you front swing into a kick, it's a front swing tornado, not a front swing 9, is because we don't call raizes one twist until it gets to cheat 720 twist. Once it gets to cheat 720 twist, we're like, okay, that's a 9. That's 9. We don't actually say 9, but we say one twist. But 9 to us means one twist kick.
We agree with that.
I agree with you. I'm not about to call.
Yeah.
Cheat 9.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Front side 9. Oh my god.
Right.
Yeah,
when I was starting to learn like tricking stuff, everyone around me called backside 9. And if you do this is a front side 9. I'm like, this is a tornado. Tornado's in a 9.
Yeah, it's. No. We have actually a lot of opinions on kicking terminology, and we actually have a very radical revision of, I guess, kicks terminology, and maybe that's something we can get into some other time because it's a lot. But
to say the least.
yeah, there's something fundamentally wrong with how we name kicks, and it has nothing to do with the degrees, actually. Fun fact. But
I mean, the degrees are definitely not accurate, and we will concede that point.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time,
but it's logically
the name doesn't
consistent.
necessarily,
Who cares about
the name doesn't have to necessarily be accurate. Yeah,
Just
to be
call it
logically consistent.
name that-
Let's talk about raiz again. Let's talk about raiz.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about my favorite trick, raiz.
You mean every other trick?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess we can buy that raiz. It is very similar to other tricks. What's the aerial aspect of it? I guess.
The exact opposite.
Okay, so
A twist, not aerial.
A twist, yeah.
Yeah, A twist or V twist, whatever else.
Well, I mean, if you want to keep the numbers the same, like keep the analogy same, you either have to see cheat 720 twist and A twist, or you have to say aerial.
I don't
raiz.
say cheat 720 twist. I just say raiz twist. But also, I don't think that if you're keeping the numbers consistent, I think raiz twist would be the equivalent of dub A twist or dub B twist.
It is.
Because you're taking off from front side. Dub A.
Well, me and Jason have the international trick line, which splits them. So, like, raiz twist, in our opinion, is a one twist, and
Yeah. They are the same amount of twists. Yes, Talon, you are right. They are in
Right.
practice. They are. But yes, but Frank and I, because of how, because of this international trick line where things start to get flipped, cheat 720 twist is only a single twist, and raiz is a 0, and aerial is a 0, and a twist is a single twist. Even though that is
I think that A twist
horribly
is also
inconsistent.
You think A twist is what?
A twist
also
is
a 0. I think about it different than you.
Mm-hmm.
I think about it like, I can stand up now. Like I'm facing front slide, and I think about it like mega, semi,
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
No, I agree, and it's that point that you're talking about where things that and we actually talk about it, this is in relationship to complete. So when you are in either mega or in semi, and you do raiz or a twist, the end goal is always complete, and the difference between them is this stance here, right?
Yeah,
and
they're both the same in binary because it's just different legs being up.
Oh yeah, in terms of absolute
Yeah.
twist.
So I would
yeah.
say that raiz twist. I'll do it right now, but not. Okay. Raiz twist.
You guys want to see a 720 twist? Is that what you guys said?
Jason can do one of
720
those.
I can do that in my room. I've only done snafu once. So such a hard trick. So raiz twist.
Yeah.
Boom. Aerial twist. Aerial twist.
I agree. Same absolute amount of twists. I agree.
Yeah.
No, yeah, for sure.
So that's
but
why I was
they're
saying.
not.
That's why I was saying raise. What was I saying? That's why I was saying that.
They're both zeros.
Yeah. A twist and raiz are both 0, and raiz twist and dub A are both 1.
Yeah, because if you're just counting the amount of twisting rotation an A twist has, it's like a half twist, but we don't round up. You know.
Okay.
You wouldn't
Aerial
call-
is kind of like an something in some sense.
An something, so like negative twists or something like that.
Yeah, negative binary. Me and Noah can talk about that a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's still logically consistent. So yeah, I mean, even though me and Jason use a different framework to view it, that's fine. So go on. That was a tangent as well, but you were talking about raiz and a twist and how they're just opposites. So what are some I guess concrete examples of this maybe?
Where they're the same or where they're opposite?
Are there aspects where they're the same?
Yeah, it's like a Venn diagram.
Okay,
Oh,
where
yeah.
are aspects where they're the same?
Okay, I'll demonstrate for you.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so where they're the same is if you take it off of both legs, front side or back side. Because with my framework, both aerial and raiz can take off from, A twist and raiz can take off from both the front side and back side.
Right.
So if you're right here, front swing from semi has to be a raiz, because how are you going to A twist if you're in semi? If you're doing it from mega, you're trying to front swing an A twist. that cannot be a raise at all.
I agree.
But if you take off of both, I know you disagree because you're saying that you can't pop A twist.
Right.
I'm saying that you can, but pop A twist, aka just like if you do a front half from here,
Yeah.
it can either be a raise or it could be an A twist, and it doesn't matter what you call it.
Okay. What?
So
Sorry. Go on.
we agree with that premise essentially, except that instead of it can be either or, it is an entirely third entity based on its takeoff alone.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you may have heard that one of our more important aspects of a trick is its takeoff, and in the same way that the left leg takeoff for aerial twist is fundamentally different than the right leg takeoff for rise, the two-footed takeoff is fundamentally different from both of these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
You have to
requires
call it a whole
entirely
different thing.
here's the thing. It's already been called a whole different thing,
Well,
is
but
the thing.
I
We have
have to
existing
disagree
terminology
with that.
for it, and it's called a brani or brandy.
Well, what if you do it like a? I mean, I guess you could say Barani. I mean, or front half snafu, but you can already pop snafu. You could pop kicks. You could do pop.
The reason you could
Oh,
pop Snapu is because Snapu's not inherently a trick; it's a variation.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying since you can pop side swipe from here. Since you can pop 540. 540 is just
Yeah.
vertical side swipe.
Swipe is a variation.
Side twist.
Yeah, but raise is a variation.
Raises a variation
Disagree.
and its own thing.
I thought you guys were saying race was a base trick, though.
It
It's both.
can be both.
Oh,
How
that's
can it
rough.
be I don't see how that can be the case.
Okay, what is D leg? What is pop D leg?
It's a front half that has been delegged.
Hmm.
It's that one is very unfortunately named. So both Snapu and D-leg are probably the most unfortunately named tricks in all of tricking because they were the base tricks that eventually led to variations, and so now we don't have a name for the base trick. So we call, if someone says a Snapu, you know they're doing a rise with a Snapu variation, but it's very unfortunately named because now we don't have a separate base trick name for that, if that makes any sense. And same thing with D-leg, like people just say straight up D-leg, but really the base trick is front half or whatever you might call it, and the variation is D-leg, and we just based every other D-leg variation that happened off of that, if that
But
makes
I mean,
sense.
like, with the whole pop raise thing, you could say since raise is the base trick, and if you pop it, you're doing the base trick of pop raise. You do pop raise D-leg, you get pop D-leg.
Yes.
Sorry, I repeat that one more time.
So if we're saying raise is the base trick,
Okay.
like in Regato and Snapu,
Yeah.
right? If you say you can pop a raise, then if you do pop raise D-leg, you get pop D-leg. The same with pop Snapu.
Right. Well, we just already disagree that you can't pop rise because what is the variation that is Sorry, what?
Pop rise is essentially pop D-leg. Just pop D-leg is variated pop rise, but we recognize pop rise as
that's what we're saying.
non-existent. Well, yeah, but what we're trying to say is that that's not
Yeah, because it
rise
has to be
still.
sequential,
it's
right?
but yeah, but it is fundamentally the same movement.
Yeah, which is why raise is a base variation.
What are you doing with your body that makes it a variation? Like what movement is happening that it's like, oh, that is something, but it's been variated with a rise? Does that make sense? That question. So what is it about rise that makes it a variation in the sense that, like, if I look at a trick and I'm like, whoa, that's a variation of rise, what visual cue am I getting, or what is happening that I'm like, yeah, that's they're variating, and the variation is called rise? Does that question make sense?
Yes. Anything that lines is complete.
Yeah, you're looking for like a physical visual cue, right?
Okay, yeah. Well, why not? That's the same shit as A-twist. And I know you were just saying that rise and A-twist are pretty much the same thing coming from punches, but then what's the point? Does that make sense?
Again?
So complete landings is just like the regular landing for everything. So it's like, why even call it a rise variation when that's just like the base landing stance for everything? On top of the
You
fact,
don't have to. I'm
Right.
saying technically it is, because you don't have to eagle. This can be a raise. It's like shitty raise. It's still a raise. You're not varying it. There's no delay. There's no
Right.
swipe. There's no round. This is shitty raise.
Right.
It doesn't have to have that eagle. So I'm saying that if you do a full, since raise is a 0, it's not like additive in any way. This is like saying full round. Round is not additive.
Right.
If you're doing a full raise, it can just be normal full. It doesn't have to be full eagle. It doesn't have to be full, and then you do like another flip. It's full. Anything landing incomplete is a raise.
Yeah.
Since I think that, raise can start from backside. It can be a back flip. You're just varying it with nothing additive. You're only doing a full.
I mean,
a full can be a full raise. There's just no point in saying full raise.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that is a valid assessment. I guess, and I know you've admitted that, like, sometimes your trick theory, you just like to trick theory for the sake of it and not really for the practical aspect.
Most of the time, yeah. One of the only real reasons I can see why, like, I don't want to say I came up with raise theory, because I know people were saying everything is a raise before, but I'm the only person I can think of that's actually elaborated on it and like really thought it out. Not to be arrogant or anything.
I'll have you know.
I'll have you know that I'm the most accurate.
Right.
But if you're what really got me thinking about it was quartz snatch cannons. I was like, everyone was saying, "Oh, that's not a snatch cannon," and then some people were like, "Well, it's a chantal, so it's a snatch cannon." But I was thinking, well, that's not quite a shant. A shant has to be like an off-axis backflip. This isn't really much of an off-axis backflip as much as like it's in the middle of shant and late tornado, or late 9. I say late tornado because that's what it is. But in the middle of late tornado and shant, I was like, what is this? There's no kick. What's the in between? I was like, what if it's a raise? Since tornado can start from backside, it can be popped from backside, and raise round is just inverted tornado. Raise can start from both front side and backside. There's like 10 different reasons why I can prove that raise can start from front side and backside and can be popped. You could use the vert kick theory, you could use swing, you could use the snafu thing, you could use a whole bunch of things.
Right. It's just to me, like, when I'm listening to these arguments, they're all built on these faulty premises that, like, the base assumption you're making is, for example, that tornado is a base trick in itself, and so tornado from backside and tornado from front side is the same trick, and therefore blank and blank and blank. When tornado is like the quote-unquote variation that's occurring, and front side is the base trick, backside is the base trick there, and they're fundamentally different tricks, and like and so on with some of the other examples you were giving, and I guess that's just kind of where we disagree with this. But
I understand that you can disagree, but
Wait.
I don't think there's any like logical.
So you think the stances are the base of the trick?
yeah, I think that the stances inform the base of the trick very heavily, actually.
Always?
What?
Always? 100% of the time with every trick?
So let me think about that.
Here's the thing, is we have 4 factors to a trick that inform what a trick is. It's not any one particular thing determines this is this or this is that. In fact, we have 4 different metrics with which we measure and compare tricks to. And those are the takeoff, the level of inversion, the variation, and the landing stance, I believe, right? Landing stance is the last one?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and all of these combine together to make up one trick. And we can shift these parts in any different way and come up with any trick.
Well, I can agree with that to some extent. So you could just call raise from backside raise. Because if you're saying that it defines it, you would call backside tornado, backside, I would say backside 5, because tornado's 5.
My thing is there's overlap here already. So, like, for example, if we're thinking of frontside and backside raise in the same way, maybe you're thinking of 2-leg takeoffs, but right now I'm picturing like a 1-leg takeoff. Let's say you're taking off right leg and you're facing your dom. That's just a regular ass raise, right? But let's say you take off 1 leg and you do a rise type of movement, but you're facing away from your dom, what someone might call backside with 2 legs.
You would call it GM scoot, or
exactly, it's a different base trick.
I call that GM raise,
but
I don't think GM scoot exists.
Okay, I see. So you're saying it's
that is a controversial opinion.
Yeah,
and we're gonna have to recognize that they are equivalents for the sake of the argument.
Yeah, GM scoot is GM raise. I'll say whatever comes to my mind first, but I know GM scoot needs a touchdown of some sort.
Right.
You're not gonna say TDR, but you can't touch. You don't need to touchdown for a TDR. It's like, what? You need to touchdown for a TDR. But I'm saying that scoot, you have to have a touchdown of some sort.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
also,
I don't
even if you don't
necessarily
base
agree
the
with
GM
that,
raise
but-
thing off of that, then GM swipe, GMS. What's the base trick? If you don't swipe that, what's that? Raise, swipe, raise. GM raise.
Or like gain or switch, but swing the other leg.
Yeah,
What is this?
we're just calling
gainer
it different
switch.
things. We're just calling it different things.
Well, I
That's
mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with like certain levels of overlap. So, you could call vanish backside raise a grandmaster raise or a grandmaster scoot, and just because there's overlap doesn't mean there's anything wrong.
Can you say those two examples one more time?
So you could call
Grandmaster scoot, grandmaster raise.
you could call that vanish backside raise, and there's nothing wrong with the overlap.
I mean, I don't think overlap is necessarily a bad thing or like a damning thing. But it could be a sign of like maybe some kind of redundancy that doesn't need to be there, if that makes any sense. Is what I've noticed when investigating trick theory. Like I know for sure me and Jason definitely, like in our framework, we have overlap with some things, but we try to minimize it.
But I think the most important thing is having a justification for its existence.
Right. I agree.
And our justification would be, Tal's would be the cork in raise out. That would be his justification for it.
And to me, that's more of just like a level of inversion or axis type of question rather than like a variation or base trick question. And that might just be somewhere where we disagree. I don't necessarily see anything logically inconsistent with what you just presented. But yeah, I mean, we just have like a different way of thinking of it, I guess. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, I mean, we're coming up to our time limit. But I mean, do you guys have any final thoughts that you really wanted to get out there before
I don't like ultra.
That's
That's all right.
That's fine. You're entitled to your wrong opinion.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Wait, are we? I mean, okay. Ultra is.
All right, here's the thing: if you're going to use semi, you have to use it right. Semi, by its nature, is subtractive.
Yeah.
Is it though?
If you're doing,
Is it?
yes, it is. Yes, it literally is. Look up semi in the dictionary, please. For me right now, you have access to the internet.
Explain, because we talk about this a lot. No, it's way better at explaining.
Oh my god, dude! I'm so ready to tear this up.
All right. So semi is half, right?
Semi is part of.
That's
No.
what you're saying. I'm looking at the
No.
dictionary. It says half.
Or just like
But
occurring
it's not.
occurring twice.
It's not
period, so.
reductive. It is.
It
whatever
is
you
literally
make it.
reductive.
If it's half
No,
of something,
no.
it has to be reductive.
Yes.
Well, no, it could be 1 and a half.
I don't know.
That-
You're saying
that's
1
still-
and a half. You're adding that and
Right, but like when you use it semantically day to day, you don't say, like.
Okay, but
here's the thing.
is
Here's the thing. When
semi-final,
you say
like-
semi truck, okay? When you say semi truck,
Ultra
the
truck.
word semi, the word semi describes the truck. Okay. So when I say semi cork, the word semi, the landing stance describes the cork.
Well,
If that's the case,
the thing. We say
by
the landing stance
literally,
after-
hold on.
but
That would
the landing
literally
stance
be
after the
half
for that
cork.
reason.
Okay. If that's the
In your
case,
framework, if you do say the landing stance before the trick, you could say semi cork is just like gainer or semi, I would call gainer semi, but we say that landing stance after it. So
semi-cork.
it's you're doing a cork, adding
Plus
the
semi?
and a
yeah,
half.
cork and a half. Like if you're in a say you're in a competition, right? You're competing. You are going to the finals. What round are you? You're in the semifinals, but you're not like going backwards. You're not like, oh, I'm coming from the finals.
Yeah,
I'm
but
going
it's
back
like
into
half. It's like half
It's-
the dude that the final is. The final is like
it
the big
literally
one.
means almost. Yeah, it's a part.
Yeah,
it's
it means
like, that's the
almost.
thing.
It's like
well,
you're
okay,
coming
okay,
that's
so
what
that's
you're
the
saying
thing.
identity sort of debate.
That's the thing. Is if it is semi-finals, it is not the debate. It is almost the debate.
But what
it
you're
is
saying
not
is
the debate. So-
semi cork.
That is almost cork.
All right. How about this? Historically, when tricking first started and we started
my
using
God.
the term semi,
Sorry.
it originally meant the way that me and Jason are describing it. I realize that has evolved over time, but that has made it so fucking confusing to the point that some people say semi in the way that we do, some people say semi in the way that newer
But the thing is that the only reason why it's confusing, I don't mean this in like a mean way or anything, is because you guys are older.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're old heads. And I agree with that, but it's just the fact that discrepancy already exists. Throw the whole fucking thing out. Like, I hate that it's already confusing.
You guys, you are 100% right. It is 100% an age thing, both ways.
We're old heads.
Because like you have to understand, Frank and I have the experience and the context of semi being used the way that we are describing it as, and that's how we were informed it was. However, you lack that context. You were not tricking when semi was initially brought about to be named in the way it was, or maybe you were, and perhaps you just didn't understand it to a point where you were able to understand semi in its current iteration is now. And Frank is exactly right. It's changed over time.
Is old tricking correct though?
No, God, we have a lot of problems with old head tricking.
But hold on. Well, yeah, and semi is literally one of them. That's why we think semi is problematic, and I think the problem is that while I agree that semi has grown to be appropriated into a way that is more more accurate, more useful, where it is seen as additive, which is obviously good, and that streamlines that process. However, there's still just because you didn't have that context of confusion doesn't mean that context of confusion isn't still present.
Right, for a lot of trickers. Yeah.
And it's not just us.
There's that context of confusion with hyper, right? Some people still say cheat 7 hyper.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's still very prevalent to this day, but that hasn't gone through the evolution that semi has.
Yeah, and since semi has gone through that evolution, I think that it is in its normal place. It's just 1.5.
Right.
You have the context and.
If you guys are talking about confusion with the definition, there's really not that many super old trickers compared to newer trickers, and semi in the context of how me and Dominic are describing it makes more sense since we don't say the
that's subjective though. You can't say it makes more sense because it makes more sense to you because you understood it and learned it that way.
It makes more sense to the general populace.
And no, that's arbitrary. And
I also think there's a lot of older trickers. Like, I still know a lot of people that were tricking with me.
Well, and here's
that are still tricking now. Like, I don't know.
And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that the usage of the term hasn't grown to be used in a more better way. It's just that it wasn't guided. Like, the term semi is literally reductive. The word semi, the word, not the context in which it is used within tricking, and that in the English language, which is the majority of trickers speak, right? The language the majority of trickers speak is English, right? When you use reductive language to describe something that increases in value or in size, it is confusing. And
yes, if you put it before the trick, but no one says. I mean, not no one, you guys, but a lot of people.
You guys are
It's divided. The thing is, the fact of the matter is that stances before or after a trick is divided. That's pretty much down the middle.
Yeah, because we say that, I guess you guys say semi-cork, right?
Yeah.
And you would think of, that's gainer semi. We say cork semi, which it's just
I know what you're referring to. I know
it's a different ordering.
Yeah, we get it. It's.
But that's why. So this is why we're suggesting that the word change. If the ordering is going to change, then the word should also change.
Yeah, we should be open to these different changes to things, especially when one of them is just really confusing.
And that's why I propose, or that's why we are advocates for Ultra. And that's the justification for Ultra.
I just want to say, because earlier you guys brought up old heads and tricking, I just want to say we're actually one of the biggest roasters of old heads and tricking. We actually really don't like old head tricking thoughts and stuff like that, and tricking terminology. So we're the first ones to roast that type of shit. And
self-admit when we're being old heads ourselves.
Yeah.
Don't think for a second that I'm not an old head, because I 100% am.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
that's
and I
fine.
hate myself for it.
I think it'll probably end up being a American English versus British English kind of thing. Or they're just two different ways of saying it?
Probably.
Yeah.
And ultra is British.
I
Oh
agree.
my gosh.
It's whatever. We could just agree to disagree on this point, but yeah.
Another question is, why specifically ultra?
It actually
doesn't
has.
have to be ultra if you've got a better word for it.
I mean, is it just because
Might go
it
with
sounds
other
cool?
lane.
It has
No.
it has precedent. We weren't the first people to bring that up. There's people who have been trying to make that a thing for years now, actually. And it was just the term that was available, and it made the most sense because you're just increasing and whatever. Like, I don't know, it's fucking Pokemon. You
like
get the
hyper,
Ultra
mega,
Ball.
ultra. Like it increases in intensity
Yeah.
up until the point where you double it.
I mean, yeah, but then you go ultra into complete. I mean, you're sort of going past
Well, because complete is the
Well,
zero. It's the
because-
base.
But if you say-
that's
if-
the thing is like a circle always comes back to complete. Like it has to.
Mhm.
Even when you look at like the degrees of a circle, zero is both 360 and 0.
Yeah.
It is like that point because it can't be anything else.
Mhm.
That's the thing is like you can't like just because it goes to complete, you're looking at it the wrong way. It goes to complete at the next level, like
Yeah, no,
ultra
I know what you're
quirk.
saying. I know what you're saying.
Ultra quirk steps up to double quirk, and then you can alter your double quirk if you really want to, and that will step up to triple quirk.
Yeah. So.
So like when you look at just the names of the tricks, yeah, I agree that ultra to complete doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but within the context of additional rotations, it makes perfect sense.
But now we're talking about context, right?
Sure.
And
What are you talking about?
And you were saying that with semi, you can't think about context. You have to think about it literally.
Yep. No.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's necessarily like mutually exclusive, to be honest. Like we could still contextualize
I
it.
asked you to think about the word semi-literally, not the usage within tricking literally.
Yeah, but now you're talking about ultra within the uses of tricking.
Right.
I
well,
also talked about semi and the uses of tricking as well.
Yeah, and we
we still contextualized it in that we were talking about how semi was previously used, and yeah, we used some non-contextual let's define semi as some backing for it. But I don't think it's mutually exclusive that like we could either contextualize it or not contextualize it. It's a little bit of both, you know.
But yeah, British English versus American English.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Overall, I think this one's definitely probably one that we're not going to budge on either way. But but I like the points that you guys brought up. It was good. So just wrong. You know?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys
Just kidding.
talking today.
Right.
Wait, what about the race thing? What do you guys think? Make it the race thing after we've talked about it.
So the raise as like a base trick. I mean, like it is. It seems like a logically consistent way to look at tricks as long as.
I just want to see if you guys can think of any like illogicalness in the theory, because that's what proves a theory wrong.
Right. What about wrap full to you? Is that like a raise variation?
Wrap race twist.
Wrap raise twist. What about how does A twist? What's the A twist version of that? Because you said that there's the rise versions of tricks and A twist versions of tricks.
Well, yeah,
I
what's
think-
Atos reference?
Or that could also be dub wrap dub A twist from backside.
Wrap dub A twist for the A twist variation. How do you wrap into an A twist actually?
Just like you would a wrap full.
Isn't that just wrap full?
If you're in backside.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It is wrap full, just like how full is.
But
pop,
you just
backside
said
raise
wrap full
twist.
is a rise.
Right, raise twist.
Wrap full
It can
is
be.
wrap raise twist.
Anything you can pop from backside, you can wrap.
Okay.
Pop.
I mean, those don't have equivalent
Wrap nine.
twists though. Wrap full and rise twist do not have the equivalent.
Yeah, they do. Raise
they
twist is a
don't.
1. If you're talking about from backside.
They do, Jason. I would say wrap full and rise twist are equivalent because they're one.
if you're talking about. from
I mean,
backside,
you
yeah.
mean are we talking? I'm not maybe from backside if that's the context, but I mean like literally rise twist and wrap full are not the same.
Not the same amount of twist, but I would still call them one
Yeah,
twist.
but we're talking about
Yes.
so we're in backside. We're wrapping the same way we do for wrap full. In hyper.
right.
If
Which
you
leg
do
are we wrapping? Left or right?
left, right. So if you did a wrap raise, just like a normal wrap raise, it would be wrap backflip, right? But then if you do wrap raise twist, yeah, it's coin flip. But if you do wrap raise twist, that would be wrap full from backside.
Okay, so, but I'm still struggling to understand what the difference between an A-twist type of wrap full versus a rise type of wrap full is.
No, that's the Venn diagram part.
Oh, they just overlap.
Yes.
Okay, so the only instances where they don't overlap is where you have an actual rise and an actual A-twist, pretty much. Is my understanding?
Yeah, like mega or semi.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So that's the only place they don't overlap.
Yes, pretty
That-
Very big Venn diagram.
Yeah, I guess that's my biggest issue with it, is like, what is even the point of...
There's only one time it can be A-twist.
So this is...
It can only be A-twist once. It's only ever rise.
Yeah, that's literally what I'm hearing, is like, there's no other side of this.
The most raise in A-twist could get would be aerial sidewinder, so...
Okay, yeah,
And
so that
that's
just
just
sounds like a
but
very
then-
arbitrary distinction.
But I mean, if that's fine. But what about things becoming aerial? How do we make things aerial? How do we do aerial besides just aerial? Because it seems like the only thing we can do is just aerial or rise.
Well, aerial. Do you mean aerial or A-twist? Because A-twist.
Aerial,
Oh, well, then that would be
aerial, and A-twist. Both of them.
Well, aerial would be like the equivalent to, or B-kick would be the opposite of spider. Or if you do like a super inverted spider, I don't know if there's like a name for super inverted spider, but
Rise.
super inverted spider versus
No, because you don't turn over your hips.
Um,
For just a spider. No spider twist, just spider.
spider twist would
Right.
be
isn't spider flip actually just coin flip?
Coin...
Is there an actual spider flip? And yes,
Well,
it is. Yes, it is.
Spider flip is just coin flip.
Yeah.
I don't like the name coin flip though,
hate
because
it.
like coin drop as an actual flip would be spider twist swipe on half.
Me and Jason actually had the same thoughts about coin flip. I'm pretty sure that coin flip
it's a stupid name.
can be its own thing. Okay, well, regardless, I think we're going a little off track.
Yeah. So
my other thing with this is, like, Tal, you came up to me and you were like, oh, I revised the rise theory thing. It actually has just as much A-twist in it. But yet, I'm seeing everything is still a rise except for A-twist, and that's the only exception to it, is that A-twist is the only... And I get everything also is A-twist, but, like, that's just such a, like, arbitrary, pointless, like, distinction.
I know. Yeah, I know it's pointless, but in context with raise theory, if A-twist really is the opposite of raise, which I think we've come to a consensus that it is,
Yeah.
we have to expand the other way, like that, instead of raise theory going like that from semi. Raise, A-twist, same exact overlap, except for, I'm waving my arms around, except for semi and mega.
Right.
Well, the problem. I think the problem is if aerial is the opposite of rise, then
A-twist.
either way, and rise is everything, then naturally, aerial would be nothing.
well, I don't think that they're opposites. Like, no, they can't be the same thing. It's like we said, it's the Venn diagram.
Right. Okay, well, my thing is, like, why does this not exist for cork and croc, for example? Like, why can't I have a similar distinction in my model, except everything's the same, everything's cork and croc, except for where cork happens, it's cork, and where croc happens, it's croc, and then that's, like, the only... Like, I see these two models, what I just described and what you guys just said, as essentially synonymous, just opposite. Does that make sense?
On the other side of the
Yeah.
landing stance.
Because to us, rise and A-twist are like analogous to cork and croc. Like that's how our model works. So maybe I'm putting a little bit of that bias in there, but like I think that's why I'm seeing this as like so redundant.
I don't know. With cork and croc, the reason why you can't say everything is cork and croc is just because cork is a 1. Not everything is a 1. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Croc is a 1. Not everything is a 1. But raise is a 0.
Okay, but
so it's
what
like,
about gainer?
Gainer
Yeah,
or
like-
gainer?
We could say the same thing for gainer and then croc gainer, which croc gainer to us is just gainer off the other leg. Whatever. You could use that. I don't really care. That's the zero twist of it. Let's roll with that instead. Like, you know what I mean?
And additionally, like, I also don't like. While I agree that Rise is not a full twist, I like if Rise is 1, or I mean, like, what is front flip to you? Is that nothing? Is that negative? Is that
It's a 0.
Well, yeah, I would agree. I agree it's 0.
Mm-hmm. There's
But
no
then-
rotation except for the flip.
And so, but then Rise is 1.
Rise is 0.
If you're taking off from front side, 0.5, whatever, still a 0.
Okay.
Mhm.
0.5.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all those assessments. It
Yeah,
doesn't-
No, I agree
You don't
with that. I
round
agree
up,
with
you
that.
know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
No,
just,
I-
I don't see why I can't do gainer and then opposite side gainer as, like, an analogous way of looking at this, in my opinion.
Well, and also I don't see how Gainer is Rise or
I see
I can
what
see
would-
how
what
gainer
would-
is
what
aerial.
would pop frontside gainer look like?
pop frontside gainer would be like a front half. So what you guys would call pop rise, I guess, maybe.
Pop front side gainer.
That, like, you can...
It'd just be like do you mean like you still like flip backward, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, like, you guys are taking...
You can.
It-
I don't think you could ever really front side gainer.
yeah, there's no such thing as
because-
front side and then you're flipping
You
backwards.
couldn't. You can do a front side backflip, for example.
But you can do that with raise. You can go pop frontside raise. You can go raise. You can go
That's
pop
where
backside
we
raise.
actually disagree, but
Rise
And I
has
think
to
that's- I
go
think we're-
forward.
I think that's where we've kind of found the point at, like, our true root of disagreement is just that, like, Rise goes forward and can't go backward, and by assuming that Rise can go backward, you eliminate, like, you wipe out, like, a lot of tricks such as gainer.
Wait, so, like, well, I know you guys, you've repeated this statement and we've repeated ours, but you guys don't agree with the whole pop raise thing.
Right.
But say you can do pop's frontside raise,
Yeah.
right? If you move it to backside, you are losing rotation because it's already in backside. You don't need to do the twist into
Just
it.
like you would a vert kick, yeah.
Yeah, just like you would a vert kick.
Right.
Sorry, I
Because-
don't understand.
Backside 9 is less rotation than frontside 9.
Yeah.
We agree
And you
with
would
that.
do the same thing with raise.
I think where we disagree is, like, you're...
I can kind of see that, but I would just call that backflip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, that's the thing is...
That's a raise.
But you guys are just, like, morphing and shifting the definition of raise, but not extending it to other tricks. And what I mean by that is, like, we make rise and gainer very mutually exclusive. Like, I can't do a gainer and it's moving frontwards. That doesn't make sense. And we can't do a rise moving backwards. That doesn't make sense. You are extending that definition to one of them, but not the other. And what I mean by that is rise, you can magically do front and back, but gainer, that's different. You have to do that backwards. And, like, that non-extension of definition to other base tricks is, I mean, I know you guys don't consider it a base trick, but regardless, like, that non-extension of it to other tricks is kind of what fucks it up for me, logically speaking, because I like my trick theory formats to have this nice, I guess, universality to it. Does that make sense?
You like the symmetrism.
Yeah.
Right?
The
Yeah.
symmetry.
That's something that maybe that is, like, our bias is our reliance on symmetry to help us understand the way things work within tricking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's the way that we see, the way Frank and I view tricking is very symmetric,
Yeah, I mean,
and it flips.
having a symmetric idea of tricking is pretty interesting. It's definitely not wrong per se. So, you know.
I just see asymmetric tricking as, like, it just doesn't.
I mean, like, tricking is naturally asymmetric.
I'm not sure. It's naturally asymmetric, practically speaking. Yeah, most people
yes.
do. Like, in a practical sense, but in a theoretical sense, I think it's very symmetrical. So, and
Or it can be made to be symmetrical.
yeah, and like, you know, I guess this is getting to a more philosophical realm, but you do see a lot of this symmetrical stuff in a lot of scientific models we have of like, you know, quantum physics and general relativity. There's a, I guess, beautiful symmetry to them, and you can argue whether that makes them more correct or less correct or whatever, but I'm gonna place my bets on it makes them more correct. The fact that we are noticing these symmetries, so
or just patterns in general that repeat themselves.
Yeah.
And can be applied to other things, which would speak to the universality of it.
Yeah, because that's the whole point of a model, is being able to make predictions off of a model. And I think that's why I like me and Jason's trick theories, because we were able to like go out and predict tricks that haven't happened, but like based off of like what's missing in the symmetry of it. You know what I mean? So.
What we're referring to specifically is the Muggle Slayer, if you do not know.
Shameless plug. But
shameless plug, yeah.
But I mean, honestly, another shameless plug. Like, honestly, if you really are curious about the symmetry of tricks, I do recommend listening to some of our podcast episodes, because it's.
Right. Real quick.
What's up?
I actually don't know your definition of Muggle Slayer. I like never heard your specific definition. So
go listen to our episode, son.
What is it? Is it
the only
Muggle
way
Slayer or something?
I'll give a quick definition. So we keep talking about croc type tricks, right? So in our
and we also talk about the cornered landing stances, or the non-linear ones, the sideways ones.
GMS.
These are relevant.
Yeah.
These are relevant for obtaining an optimal setup for the Muggle Slayer.
Right.
So just understand that, you have to consider that to help get you to really understand how the Muggle Slayer will work.
Yeah.
But sorry, Frank, to interrupt you.
No, you're good. So yeah, what Jason was talking about was the short and absolute landing stances. But we have cork and we have croc. And cork is when you twist left this way, take off your right leg, whatever you're swinging, right? Some people might call croc when you do the same takeoff and twist the other way. The way we define croc, just to make it simpler, you're still twisting the same direction, you just take off the other leg, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, okay, good.
Definition. There should be no
we
nuance
agree.
about
We
that.
agree.
Okay, cool.
I'm glad we agree on that, because a lot of people have given a shit about that definition of croc. But one of the biggest reasons we give that definition of croc is because this symmetry exists for raiz and A-twist. When you're taking off for a raiz, that's like the cork version, right? Because your leg is going with your twisting momentum, and so you're doing a raiz. If you take off the other leg, but you're still twisting the same way, that's the croc of raiz, which is A-twist.
You have to twist past your plant leg to do that, in the same way you have to twist past your plant leg to croc or cork.
Yeah. And then, so we have...
actually, you don't... and they are... I'm sorry, really quick, Frank, because I hate to interrupt you like that.
Go ahead.
Just that I was going to say, but you said that raiz and cork are like the mirrors of each other. Well, yes, they are still. You just have to realize that tricks at front side and tricks at back side have like a swap that occurs, and it's due to the international trick line. I'm not going to get too much into it. You've heard me talk about it enough. But
Right.
essentially, like the when you swing right in backside, you have to swing past your leg. But when you swing right in front side, you don't have to twist past your plant leg, and that's the difference here. And that switches whether you're in front side or back side in terms of this. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Your definition of Muggle Slayer would be like the croc of rap.
The croc of rap.
Yes.
So
Precisely.
the way that you can visualize that, right? So wrap, you're landing on your right leg, your left leg wraps behind you, and you twist the same direction that your leg is pulling you, which is left, right? So now you have to take off 90 degrees, the opposite. So this would be short complete, right? So it's like the lotus takeoff place. But your right leg is going to wrap behind you, but as it wraps behind you, you're kind of forcing yourself against that momentum and twisting left instead.
Yes, and this way you also still maintain your dom. Your dom would still be, in Frank's case, going towards that closet.
Yeah.
And it would still be maintained.
Yeah.
Because of how short complete works.
So yeah, to be fair, you don't have to take off short complete to do this. You just have to make sure that your dom goes in a direction that mimics Muggle Slayer. Just short complete is the easiest way to visualize it, because that's how you continue your dom in the same direction. So. And
seriously, watch Malik's first few Muggle Slayers, and even his standing one. That is the pinnacle example. That is what I envisioned Muggle Slayer to look like.
Right.
So when I saw those, I thought that they looked sort of like a rap Jonah, but like
Jonah?
Yeah, like Jonah is it's like the Arabian of front flip,
Okay.
if that makes sense. So instead of doing, a normal front half where your hips go over your head as you twist,
I'm sorry, you guys keep talking. I really have to go pee.
you do the half twist, and then you flip. And I saw Muggle Slayer as like Rap Jonah that starts on the lotus axis.
Yeah, essentially, like, I see what you're saying. You do kind of complete that first twist in air, and the first twist is kind of misleading because it's really only a 90-degree turn.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's similar to that. It's honestly the best way to really think about it is like it's like a wrap D leg, with where you wrap your right leg instead of your typical left leg. So you'd still take off front side like you would in a pop, but you will wrap your right leg behind.
Yeah, I guess. But
And
Malik's Muggle Slayers, right? They flip. His hips go directly over his head, and I think that's where I would switch from like wrap D leg to wrap Jonah.
okay, well, I mean, I've never heard of a Jonah until like literally you just spoke about. Like literally,
okay.
like yeah. So I mean, when I was saying like wrap D leg, I was just trying to give you like kind of an understanding of how to like simplify envisioning the trick. But if Jonah is a more apt description for you, then that's appropriate too.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen one before, so I don't know.
What's up? What do you say, Tal?
Tal thinks it's a wrap lotus.
It is.
It is wrap lotus.
It's the wrap version of Lotus.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up. In the same way that GM is like the GM version of a wrap, it's it's mirrored.
Yeah.
It's
If you think GM and Wrap Full are two different tricks, then you also have to accept that Lotus and Muggle Slayer are two different tricks.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's what Muggle Slayer is.
All right.
Sam, send me some footage of a Jonah because I want to see what that looks like. If you don't have my Instagram, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
I think I've only ever seen like 2 clips of Jonah. So I'll have to search pretty hard for them.
Yeah, I've like literally never heard of it. I mean, I'm not to say that I doubt you. I've just like I've literally never heard of it before. And I mean, there's like tons of gymnastics and other like flip sports that have terms I'm not super familiar with. Like I know Miller flip is a thing, and don't ask me what it is. I couldn't tell you. So
Right.
I only know front twisting stuff.
Yeah.
That's where my knowledge stops.
Yeah. But I think that we've been recording for a second. So do you guys have any final thoughts you want to add before we close it off?
I think Jose is the best tricker in the world.
I mean, yeah, that's obvious. Mike is salty.
Okay,
He's not.
good.
Yeah.
Because some people were like, Michael Caffey.
Oh God, no! He's just salty as
He's a
fuck.
fucking prick.
Dude, you have to. You guys really need to listen to our podcast. Like honestly,
Yeah, we talk shit about Guthrie a lot.
we've
Okay,
been
good.
on this. We've been on this.
You're trying to copy Adrenaline.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, we literally have a video about that post.
Oh yeah, we made a podcast episode about Guthrie's post and the controversy with it. So yeah.
Good God, that one story was just so. Then he just dipped after that for a month.
Right. But yeah, no, it was a pleasure, honestly, having this debate. I thought it was really cool, actually, and I like the points you guys brought up. And yeah, I mean, like, it was just, I don't know, I've never had a live debate like this, so it was cool.
Yeah. It was very informative, but we got nothing done.
Exactly. There you go. No, but I mean, I am strongly going to consider, especially like for me and Jason were talking the other day about your definitions of missleg and rapid and stuff like that. And I think there is some worthwhile insight there. Like, don't get me wrong, I think we still will stick with our definitions of missleg and rapid, but it was cool to see what you called missleg and rapid. So,
yeah, I think they're both consistent. It's just that you don't use fake stances and we do.
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so, and I think that makes the difference. I think actually, Frank, I think and I'm not certain on this. This is another thing I'll have to get back to you on when I ponder it further in my orb. Is that the use of fake stances may negate the need for a differentiation between like the use of the international trick line.
Oh.
But maybe.
I would love to hear.
Only in regards to like front twisting, maybe. I'm not sure. We'll have to talk about it.
I would love to hear more about that. So yeah, ponder its own.
It probably isn't, but I just maybe it could be, because the way that like when now Tal was describing, describing it before, it was like, oh, this makes sense, but only on half of it, on like half the side of it. So I'm thinking maybe if you use like fake landing stances throughout, then you may be able to avoid that by.
Yeah, well, we do.
Well, no, I know you do. I'm just saying, like, I'm pondering hypothetically if the use of fake landing stances would negate the need, like, to mentally gymnastics that trick line thing.
Right. Our idea of international trick line.
I can't wait for the future line of theory that uses short fake complete.
Hey, that is still technically a valid landing stance that can be done. So
that's true. It is.
It is valid.
Virgin complete.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it. Thank you as always to Steve Rogers for the music.
Alex Hunter for the logo.
Yep, and Stephen French for for modeling for the logo, because Stephen French made the logo. You dumbass.
Whatever. But Tal Flow for being our guest, and Sam as well.
Yeah. It was a pleasure.
Let's do this again. Let's do this again sometime.
Yeah. I'd love to.
We'll definitely talk.
If you're free sometime this break.
Yeah.
Let me know.
No worries. All right. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.